Hi everybody and welcome to another video. I'm Sue and I'm a victim, or I should say survivor, of narcissistic or toxic long-term abuse, and I fight CPTSD as a result every day. Today's video is about how to beat the narcissist. So what do I mean by that? Well, of course, we all know there's different levels or spectrums of narcissism. Some are worse than others. I just happen to have been involved with one of the worst, the high spectrum of abuse, and I did so for 14 years. Now, there are good people in the world and there are bad people. There are bad people, end off, that go out of their way because of a balance, an imbalance, in chemical imbalance in the brain. If you know, most of you should know about where the root of narcissism comes from, and it comes from when they were traumatized as a child. It's also to do with upbringing, but basically they didn't mentally grow up. They do have a brain of a toddler, so therefore they cannot live in the real world. So they grow up then with that mentality as a toddler, and it doesn't matter what you say or what you do, they will self-sabotage because it's their way and they can't mentally adjust or see anything in any other person's way. It has to be their way, and it's down to them having to survive. Survive from what? Again, is all in their head. We all grow up surviving, having to survive one way or another. There's different problems and different crises in our lives. I was grown up in a school whose motive was to live is to have problems, to solve problems is to grow intelligently. But unfortunately for narcissists, they cannot grow intelligently. They are mentally stuck at toddler age. They grow up to be bad people, and people like ourselves find ourselves in a bad situation. But we're not aware of that we're in a bad situation at the time. We're virtuous people. Most of us are usually intelligent, professional, loyal, and honest, and can be trusted. But what happens is, once we get involved and we get love bombed, then it doesn't matter what your background is, you will get sucked in to the toxic life, and you will become toxic yourself, living in a toxic relationship environment. So a lot of us get discarded. Some of us are lucky, and we can get out. A lot of us can't. We become trauma bonded to that abuse on a day in and day out basis. So who looks after us? How do we get through it? How do we survive the worst of the worst? Being with these people that just have never grown mentally mature, and in order for them to survive, they literally have to hang, draw, quarter you, and they will try to destroy you. There are people who believe in the Holy Spirit, and there are people who are just spiritual. But either way, regardless of what you believe in, I think people like us are always looked after. We always manage to somehow survive without hurting anybody. And that's why we're called survivors. I mean, I've always thought myself lucky. I've been in quite a few bad situations, financially, career-wise, not just, a relationship, but somehow when it comes to the crunch, I've always felt that there was somebody looking after me, and I know who that person is. But somehow we manage to get through and we get by. And that's because we're not bad people. We're not a bad person, and we do have somebody looking after us when times are bad. That's my experience anyway. Now, with bad people, they don't get that. They continue in the same cycle, running away, hurting people in relationship after relationship after relationship. There isn't anybody to look after them. So just being you and carrying on doing what you're doing, this is why we will always beat the narcissist, because they're maladaptive, meaning they can never ever move on. They think when they pick their new victim and they're in a new environment, in a new identity, they think that's going to keep them safe. But they self-sabotage. There isn't a relationship that they can ever be fully intent with and ever fully work on. So once you're out of that relationship, that toxic, narcissistic relationship, then you will be beating the narcissists every single day for the rest of your life. Now, if you want to go, that's spiritually. If you want to beat a narcissist, as in lawfully, for example, then you need to gather all the evidence that you can. You're not going to be thinking about it. Maybe somewhere in the back of your mind. I think there's always red flags with us once we're in a toxic relationship. There is something with us that know that something isn't right. Now, the way we've been groomed and sort of brainwashed, and the virtues that we've got, we're always going to be working at the relationship, because we do believe in the person that we were with, because we didn't know at that time how bad the relationship was that we were in. So you need to gather all the evidence that you can, whether it's text messages, emails, photographs, anything, that when you get those red flags, that is the evidence that you need to be keeping. You need to be putting it into a folder on your laptop, computer, whatever, and you need to be putting it in there and then aside. Because if you're in with a really, really bad narcissist and it comes down to law, then you're going to need that as backup. This is what happened in my case, under my malicious prosecution case. They had me for 9 false indictments. And 9 indictments, and all the CPS needed was me to be found guilty on 1 of those 9 indictments. It didn't happen. It didn't happen because they were false allegations, and I had the evidence to prove that they were false allegations. Also the evidence that when the police are involved and they're not believing in your evidence, then you need to be collating that as well. Now that's your law. I mean, 80-90% of the time you're not going to get to that point. You may in family law when it's to do with children, but it applies to you as well. Even when you're in a relationship and you've got some red flags going on, you need to be collating that evidence, because you never know when you're going to need to go back to it to prove your innocence, as in my case. Now, the narcissist's end result is they wanted you in the beginning because of your virtues. And then as they go on, they get to resent you for those very virtues that they chose and targeted you in the beginning, because they haven't got those virtues. So once you are out of that relationship, by the skin of your teeth, in many cases, and then you do go on to be yourself, be successful, if they have thrown the law into your face, to make sure that you win when they've thrown the law into your face, and they cannot stand it, they cannot accept it, and it will drive them absolutely livid, because they have to win. To them, they are always going to be a victim in their mind. Okay, and once you have go back on your evidence and you go back to you being yourself, you will always beat the narcissist, because they ain't going anywhere. They ain't going anywhere with the new victim, like they didn't get anywhere with the last victims. You look at their history and you know where they're going in their future. They can't change. They're maladaptive. They keep repeating themselves over and over and over again. And you have to know that, and to be successful in what you do, know it and know where they're going. And this is how you'll always beat the narcissist every single day. Anyway, any comments, etc., just let me know, or any questions, and we'll see where we go. Bye.